Okay, it's 3:05.
The time has come.
Should we get started?
Oh, yes. I think we can start.
We can start leisurely and let the others trickle in as we proceed. Okay. Well, welcome everyone in the room to the second DHAsia webinar session. My name is Setsuko Yokoyama, and I'm an assistant professor of digital humanities at Singapore University of Technology and Design. And I am today's host. And I'm really glad to see all of you here in the room, despite it being the mid-December, which is a crunch time for everyone in academia. As you know, this webinar is organized by a group of scholars interested in DH from around Asia. So that includes India, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Korea, mainland China, Singapore, and Japan. And the organizing team is growing. And I need to thank all the co-organizers who made this series possible. A special thanks goes to Dr. Jae-young Lee from Ulsan National Institute of Science and Technology, who coordinated today's session. Due to time scheduling conflict, he cannot be here today, but I hope you get to meet him in our future sessions. Now, without further ado, let me introduce today's moderator, Professor Kyunghwan Oh. He's a professor of history at Sungshin Women's University and received his PhD from the University of Chicago in 2007. His research concerns Western history, especially French history and the history of ideas. Let me pass the virtual microphone over to you, Professor Oh, so that you can introduce today's speaker for us.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Kyunghwan Oh. I'm a European historian working in Seoul, Korea, and I'm very honored to be invited to the DHAsia series. I didn't know this kind of thing was, available via Zoom, so I'll participate in future sessions, I hope. I'll be the moderator and a part-time discussant for this session. Of course, my discussion will be very short because I'm a novice to DH. But I'll try to moderate and I'll try to mediate your questions to Dr. Wu, of course. I thank DH and its staff for this opportunity. Today's presentation is Dr. Donghyun Woo's The Diaries of the Soviet Ambassador in Pyongyang, Data-Specific Network Approaches to North Korean History Studies. It's a tantalizing title already, I think. And Dr. Donghyun Woo is currently an assistant professor in the School of Digital Humanities and Computational Social Science at Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology. In Korea, they are known as KAIST. It's a very good school, and I'm really happy that I know Dr. Woo from his graduate student days, so that he became a professor in a very prestigious university in Korea is very happy occasion for me. So without further ado, we'll hear from Mr. Woo, and then we'll get back to the questions. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Professor Yokoyama and Professor Oh, for generous and wonderful introduction of myself. Yes, I'm a historian. I'm Dr. Donghyun Woo, historian. And as always, giving a talk through Zoom is always making me a bit nervous. So I need some time to land on the presentation mode. So I solicit your understanding in advance. And as introduced, I'm going to talk about what I'm currently doing as one of my projects, digital humanities projects and history research projects. So let me share the screen in the room, and can you see the screen? Okay, nice. All right. So yes, I don't know how to start. It might be better to start as how I start my class. So before I offer every course, I always talk to students that the best class is a class that ends way earlier than the scheduled time. And reflecting my pedagogical philosophy, I hope to race through this presentation so that we can use more time for productive and insightful discussion. And I really expect to receive such comments from you so that I can improve the quality of my project. So mapping the partyway interaction. I'm going to talk about my mapping project, having a North Korean history as a case study. So here is my email and my webpage for the lab. So if you are interested more, you can always visit or contact me through these addresses. And before getting started, I just wanted to let you know that my name, Donghyun, stands for DH. So it's kind of coincidence that I came to work on digital humanities project. So I'm a novice, but I will be very happy to learn more from you. So let me start. Yes. So the content of today's presentation, I'm going to talk about myself very briefly, and then I'm going to go over my claims through this project, and I'm going to introduce my sources and the concept partyway interaction. I'm going to talk about this, and then I'll move on to talking about network approaches. I know many of you are already familiar with the concept, but I am learning this concept. I'm learning this by ropes, and I hope to learn more from your comments after this presentation. And then finally, I'll conclude my presentation by talking about limitations. And I would like to place the limitations in context so that I can improve my work. Yes. I'm Donghyun. I'm an assistant professor in probably the longest named department in Korea. And I'm also working as a nuclear historian. So I'm serving as an adjunct professor in the Department of Nuclear Quantum Engineering at KAIST. And I received training in history starting from the early 2010s. And as Professor Oh kindly shared, I have been friends to Professor Oh, and I have learned from his advice and a very kind guidance. So it's very much honored to give a presentation with his moderation. And yes, Russia. I have worked in many archives in Russia. Since I'm a historian, I was very much occupied with gathering data from all over the world if it was related with North Korean history. And I saw Benoit in the audience, and I met him in Moscow in this facility, the State Library of Russia, also known as the Lenin Library. And these pictures illustrate what I have been doing so far. So I was, I don't know, I was focusing on gathering data as much as possible. And the dots in the map represent the places where I conducted archival works. And the countries included the US, Russia, and South Korea. And in those dotted places, I have worked to gather historical sources or historical materials. So I was really crazy about gathering the data. And these are illustrations of some North Korean publications that are owned by myself. And in order to access those data, you might want to go to North Korea or to Russia, or you can simply ask me if you can use these materials. So like this, once again, I was hunting data from all over the world. And as you can see, for writing my doctoral dissertation, as well as to doing digital humanities, I was putting a lot of efforts to structuralize or give a structure to those data. So as you can see, it's very disorganized. It's not structured at all, but still I'm working on this database and I'm expanding these databases related with North Korean history. So this presentation is partially about why I began to focus on this digital humanities approaches or digital history as an academic endeavor. Because I obtained a huge amount of data, but during my doctoral program, I couldn't utilize the data that I had gathered so far efficiently. So for example, there were so many Russian archival documents, and I meticulously read them and tried to use the information contained from those materials. But unfortunately, as you can see, I was only able to use the information from those data into the form of a table or a note. So to me, it was like a waste. It was like a waste. So I wondered what I should do to maximize the use of the information contained in those archival materials. So my main question was this: how to make the most out of those data? In order to get those data, I invested lots of resources, energy. I have visited Russia for more than 5 years, and I have stayed there to gather more data. But as you just saw, I was not efficiently using those data and the information in those data. So my claim for this presentation is this. So I'm gonna first read these claims, and then I'm going to add a bit of explanations. So a topological reading of historical actors and their interactions not only provides noble pictures that were understudied previously, but also enables new meaningful questions for further historical examination. And with the digital technologies in our hands, I think we are able to do this topological reading of historical data. And in addition to this, my secondary claim goes like this: historical contexts surrounding those sources must be considered in setting how to configure nose edges and weights, because I'm doing a network approach, as this very preparatory process directly leads to various research outcomes and interpretations. So these are my claims, and I'm going to add more explanations. Why topology? So I'm sure that many of you have heard already what topology was. So topology in its traditional mathematical sense deals with properties that are sustained, preserved under continuous transformations. And this answer was provided by the ChatGPT. And topology is being used in different academic realms, including biology, physics, computer science, robotics, etc., etc. So I wondered if I was able to apply this great theory or great approach to the studying of history. So this probably will be my third claim. I don't know. It's like this: a new understanding of the fundamental connections and interactions between people that remain consistent despite changes in circumstances or perspectives. So I think that applying topology to the observation of history or the use of historical data will provide us with a new understanding about the interactions among historical figures. And it's a bit more TMI, too much information about this topology. The very core message behind this slide is that if you are innovating an academic discipline like topology to the extreme, then you'll be awarded with the prize, like the Nobel Prize, and these amazing 3 scientists for their meritorious service in the advancement of those fields awarded with the money of $770,000 US in 2016. So maybe if I'm successfully developing this line of historical or this I don't know research, then I might be able to be awarded with this money. I don't know. So then I know that some of you will ask why you need such an approach. So the state of the North Korean history field in mostly English language academia and plus a little bit of Korean language academia. Mostly North Korean history research is conducted and by historians, and their academic foundings, results are being published through the form of monographs or articles, meaning that they are mostly textual, they are mostly descriptive, and more people is losing interest in reading those explanations. So my accompanying question is this: how to narrate history or how to show history in different manners. That's why I'm doing this presentation with the main message of this, I don't know, like using specific sources to provide a new line of information display. So now this slide is to talk about sources and concepts. So sources first. So I have been reading diaries of Soviet representatives residing in foreign countries. In my case, North Korea. In Russian, it's called dnevniki. And to give you a little bit of information, almost all diaries, like or logs, contained in the Russian Foreign Policy Archive and Russian State Archive of Contemporary History. Both archives are located in Moscow. And these diaries have different informational values, meaning that there is a lot of discrepancy between what's written in ambassadorial diaries and non-ambassadorial diaries, because all Soviet and Russian diplomatic staffs are supposed to write these journeys, diaries, or logs. And for my case, I mostly refer to the ambassadorial diaries, and they were recorded ex post facto, meaning it contains many different entries with the dates and what happened in those dates, and it was recorded after the 7 to 10 days were passed from that date. And usually the content was politically interesting topic for the Soviet diplomats. So for my case, I am creating network visualization using the data that was produced between 1953 to 1960. So it's about 1950s. And in those diaries, I think there are some considerations that should be taken into when, I don't know, extracting information. So obviously writing styles or probably different among these different Soviet diplomats, and they also served for different time periods. And what's important is the fact that there are lots of errors. It might be factual, it might be numerical, but anyway, errors took place in recording. So you should not believe what's written in those diaries as truth. You might want to think about how to extract information from those diaries laden with such errors. So continuing, so I asked, what can be salvaged? What can be used from this source? So for example, date of each entry recorded? Yes, might be, but there is an error sometimes. And date of events in the text? itself, like something happened in a certain day, but it's not always correct. So you need to consider this aspect. And numerical information, usually digital history or digital humanities is related with this quantifying the information and using this quantitative approaches, but numerical information in those diaries are not correct sometimes. So you need to also be careful. So finally, I boiled down my thoughts to the use of the fact that Soviet ambassador and certain political figures in North Korea met. So that's why I came up with this idea, interactions. So I wanted to see these interactions, and based on these interactions between Soviet diplomats and historical figures to create a network visualization. Why party-way interactions? It's because Kim Il-sung, the most important figure in North Korean history, like more than often talked about this concept. So I thought that making this term as a kind of catchphrase for my this project will be cool. So in Russian, it's called paparchinomu. It can be used in adjective or in adverb. And a party-way conversation is defined myself as a fraternal spirit, which communist interlocutors were supposed to be in. So in ambassadorial diaries, there are cases where Kim Il-sung requested or asked Soviet diplomats to be honest and truthful in teaching him or letting him know something and something. So this communist interactions or interactions between communist politicians should be following a party way, and that's why I brought this concept here. And network approaches, I'm learning still, and I know there are many things to be learned. So basic setups is like this. Nodes denote figures, historical figures, and edges, they represent interactions recorded in diaries. And weight, I'm working on this weight component, but unfortunately, I'm not able to show this network visualization with this weight, but I'm working on this weight component. So probably in the future, I can share the result of my research with you. And why I'm making this network visualization? Because it shows an incomplete picture of the North Korean high politics in the post-Stalin 1950s. And I think this network visualization, which I will be showing soon, is still better than textual forms. It's partly because no one is reading, for example, like articles or like books. If you are not researcher, if you're not historian, this textual form, the information given as following the textual form is losing, I think, popularity. So I think this network approach is very attractive. And this through this approach, I will be enabled to see this how the network was structured through this concept. So again, this network approach enables topological observation and interpretation of party-way interactions. So you can really see and how network is connected and how the different weights are distributed instead of just reading text. So in order to make a network, this process is very important. You need to assign nodes and edges. And here I'm going to show you my previous version of network visualization. So no weight is considered in this version. And ta-da! This is the party-way network in the 1950s based on Soviet ambassadorial diaries. And as you can see, it's a little bit hard to see, but there are certain nodes with names in red color, meaning Soviet ambassadors. And in the very middle of this network, there are very important figures, especially North Korean politicians, including Kim Il-sung, Namil, Park Jong-il, Lee Dong-gun, Park Hee-wan, something, something, something. So if you just read a book of North Korean history, you might create your own this relations network in your head. But what I wanted to do was to show this network based on my reading of those Soviet data. And I believe this network really demonstrates how the human interaction network was there in the 1950s. So when you are talking about this network approach, there are many different standards that you can quantify any components you want to see through different among different nodes. So for example, here there are calculated standards. I used the software GAFI, and the GAFI just provided these standards. But as you can see, whereas Puzanov was ranked the first in 5 different standards, the order or sequence of importance is different among different standards. So what it means, that's what I need to think more. So for interpreting these different settings, I want to receive many productive comments from you. And also this network has some problems because as you can see, there are some outliers, meaning that those historical figures didn't do much in the writings of North Korean history, but then in my network analysis, they like stand. So I also need to think about how to narrate or how to explain those nodes. And here I attached the addresses of this network visualizations in progress. So if you're interested, you can play with this very basic partyway network. I'm going to update it. I'm going to innovate it later. And finally, yes, like second to the final slide. So what it means to do a topological observation. So as you can see, without reading a history book, once you have this network, you can say that such historical figures as Namil, Lee Dong-gun, Park Jong-il, Park Hee-wan were important. And related this, I was able to formulate very meaningful questions. For example, since Namil and Lee Dong-gun, they were Soviet Koreans previously, and they supplied information to Soviet diplomats. How did the dismissal of Namil and Lee Dong-gun from their positions weaken the Soviet intelligence capabilities in North Korea? So with this network, I was able to formulate this question immediately. Not immediately, but still. And also, another question might be this: why are socialist representatives, including Fischer, German ambassador, Sedlniecki, Polish ambassador, and Gianu, Romanian ambassador, in the middle? So in my network visualization, those socialist representatives have their places in the middle. But were they really important in the course of North Korean history? It's very debatable. So I need to think more to address this issue. What consideration should be taken to precisely show the importance of non-Soviet representatives? So this question is more about methodological considerations. And my final slide. So I know it's very incomplete, and I'm working on this project, and there are, of course, many limitations. And some of the limitations that really torture me are these. it's really hard to quantify or assign corresponding weight to what's written in the Soviet ambassadorial diaries. So for example, it really depends on how I give weights to each edges or each nose. And obviously, you already know that Kim Il-sung was the most important historical figure. Then other than other figures than Kim Il-sung, what should I do in terms of giving or assigning these attributes will be pretty much a difficult question. And then next one, visualized networks are not always intuitive to understand. So I will learn more how to make it look simpler, at the same time inspiring. So I already spent 32 minutes. So thank you for listening. And I thank you in advance for your comments.
Please unshare your screen, please.
Oh, yes, I think I already did.
It's still showing your computer, I think.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm really sorry. I am trying to, I will join this room right away.
Okay, our presenter is out, I guess. He'll be back soon. In the meantime, I'm a novice to DH and digital humanities and digital history in particular. So this has been a great educational opportunity for me. So for that, I thank again DHAsia, its organization and staff, and Professor Yokoyama and Dr. Wu, of course. His presentation follows North Korean Soviet relations on a topological plane of partyway conversations. I never really heard about this term, so it's kind of unique to me, but I think it is an interesting foray into the high politics and diplomacy to unknown, and he has visualized it in such a way that there is something going on in there. Well, I'll be waiting to read this full paper. As a novice to digital history, I do have some traditional historical and historiographical questions. So let me ask them before I open the discussion and questions to the floor. First off, what does the existence of these partyway conversations signify? And what does that mean? I mean, does that mean they are closer? I mean, does that mean that they are doing, they have personal relationships? Other than the fact that we can draw a topological analysis of these conversations, which in itself is very interesting, does this topology signify, for example, Namil is very prominent in this picture, relatively closer interrelation with the Soviets than others, or his socialist internationalism? I mean, you have defined this partyway conversation as your perimeter, and I don't know what it means really, right? I mean, does that, I mean, in a sense, I mean, it can be a really formal thing, right? As a traditional historian, I mean, you read these things and then you find these partyway conversations, you probably think, well, I mean, it's a formal address, right? I mean, Kim Il-sung is saying, we should unite or whatever, right? So, I mean, you have made numerical data out of it and you show the frequency and the thickness of it, which is interesting. But at the same time, what does that thickness and the frequency mean? Or do you have any hypothesis on it? Or are you more concerned with the overall vista of diplomatic interactions, which is totally acceptable, but I don't know what you are actually using this concept for, right? Second, I do feel that the data sources are a little bit limited, not in terms of quality, but in terms of quantity. I think you have defined partyway conversation as certain types of communication among international socialists, right? I think your research can benefit from more knots and more edges and more weights, actually. I imagine there are many other instances in which these partyway conversation took place, but were never recorded in diary entries, right? Also, I'm certain that you can think of interaction practices that are qualitatively similar to these conversations, but it's not in the diary, right? So my question is, do you have any other sources that can bolster your topology? Meaning, do you want to incorporate other practices into your research to whatever strengthen your argument, or would that hurt your thematic arguments and the goal of your research? I ask because the incorporation of data in different register can create problems, right? I mean, because you are using certain types of data and you made this numerical sort of picture, and then you put sort of different data in it, then, is it really, does that really make sense or not? So I'm a novice, so that's kind of worrying to me. Third and finally, I wonder how or if these analyses can be translated into traditional historical analysis. Of course, you are trying to do that at the end of the paper and then at the end of your presentation. I said if, because I'm not entirely sure about your intentions vis-a-vis this project. Do you want to extrapolate these connections and topology into a research of Soviet-North Korean diplomatic relations in general? Or are you more interested in visualizing these connections? So, I mean, probably this is the questions you will get from traditional historians when you present this type of paper. But I think there are some questions that you need to address, I guess. So let me hear from you.
Oh, thank you so much for such like inspiring and informed comments, Professor O. Three questions that you have just raised are all very valuable, and I already took notes here, so I'm going to use these comments and questions as kind of like guideline to develop my work. So for some of your questions, I don't have clear answers at this moment, because as you might have understood or realized, I'm at the very I'm in the very beginning stage as long as this project is concerned. And related with your answering your first question, this partyway interaction. So, and through this concept, what do I mean, or what do I signify via this concept is so I don't know. This project partly is originated from my this frustration by how historians have been using this very specific sources from Russian archives. And I might be the one who read most of the this Soviet ambassadorial and non-ambassadorial diaries that have been available. And while reading this, I thought that it's really important to extract as much information as possible to use my historical study. But then there were not many good examples, frankly speaking. So I'm kind of navigating in a very new and like uncertain realm. So I am working on how to place a historically meaningful implication into this concept partyway interactions. And at this moment, I mean partyway interaction. I mean I wanted to show the how different figures in the 1950s North Korean history, especially after the Korean War, interacted. And once I am finished making this network analysis, then I might be able to add something more to upgrade or to revise this concept. But at this moment, through this concept of party-way interaction, I meant just interactions between historical figures recorded in ambassadorial diaries, because most of those interactions, like I don't know the portion, but much of those interactions were not made public in the 1950s and way after. So I think this endeavor was valuable in its right, and it actually touches upon your second question. Yes, sources are very limited. It's like a curse in working on socialist countries, especially North Korea. But I actually made a database where I put all of the entries from Soviet ambassadorial diaries that were made available, and so the interactions, there were around 1,200 interactions between 1953 to 1960. So I thought it's quite okay to use this data, because it's not only valuable when you have more and more data. Sometimes if you have lots of data, then certain patterns or implications might not be visible. So I don't know, while I'm working on gathering more data, I will try to think how to use the sources differently, or how to extract information differently from these sources. And thank you so much. And finally, translating this DH work into a traditional form of article or paper, for example. It's a very important question, and that's why I presented. So while I'm learning from the inspiring thoughts from the audience, I will think more about how to deliver my findings and these visualizations in a traditional form of an article or paper. So I know my answers are very incomplete, but it means that I am in some sense lost, and I am trying to come back to the grid. So thank you so much for your questions, and I hope my answers partly satisfy your these comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I do have further questions, but I will refrain for now, and I'll open the discussion to the floor. And what should we call this? Floor, or the room, or the Zoom? Or I guess I'll open this discussion to the Zoom. So anybody who wants to make a comment or questions, please indicate so via raise hand button or chat, or you can just start speaking. Professor Yokoyama, do you have a question?
Yeah, Augustine has the hand up.
Oh, okay. Oh, I don't see it. Oh, okay. Mr. Kosovich.
Kosovsky. Yeah, Kosovsky. Yeah. Hi.
Sorry.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's fine. Thank you so much for the presentation. I found it very interesting. I have a couple of things to say. I think we have time, right? I think it's okay if I take some minutes to talk about this. So I wanted to give you some context to explain you why I was interested in this presentation. I was trained, first of all, just to tell you, let me know if there's something with the connection at a certain point, because it hasn't been working properly in the last few days. I am a historian of socialist Yugoslavia and the Cold War in general, I would say, in Southeast Europe. I'm a historian of the Balkans. I've mostly worked in France, Now, I'm based in Athens at a French research institution in Athens. And for some time now, let's say 4 or 5 years, I've been working a lot on inter-party diplomacy between socialist Yugoslavia and different left-wing forces and parties in the third world, especially in Latin America. For some time, I worked on connections between socialist Yugoslavia and socialists in Chile, in Latin America, during the 1950s and 1960s. And I was working from a very traditional perspective in terms of methodological reading of the archive, working on the archive and just reconstructing on the basis of travel logs, journals, such as the ones you were mentioning, not so much with ambassadors, but rather with inter-party diplomacy, meaning parties that were not in power back then, right? And I was very interested by your presentation when I saw it. I don't remember now where I saw the ad in which social network, because I've started to work on connections between the Yugoslav socialist regime and the Cypriot Communist Party, the Communist Party of Cyprus in the 1960s, and I started to work on a very similar perspective on what you are doing now, not on the basis of travel logs, but on the basis of archival sources. And I've met many of the same challenges that you're talking about. Many of the same questions have emerged in my research, which is how to deal with data which is necessarily incomplete. And I think that many of these questions, which often come up in any sort of historical inquiry, because always the sources are always limited and we never have all sources. I think that when we work with a digital approach in a certain way, that bias becomes more evident, not necessarily more serious and not necessarily more impairing. It's just that we see it differently. I don't know if I make myself clear with this. But my point with this is, I think most of the questions that you're raising are the same ones that I've been trying to deal with. I think all of them are normal. I think they're part of the process of trying to go from reconstructing these networks on a more qualitative basis as a traditional historian to trying to visualize them and seeing them differently. I also think I had one or two questions to ask, and also one comment, which is, I think that there are also certain basic observations that you have to make about the network that you're showing, which are relevant. And the first one being the size of the network. The size of a network, I think, is a basic observation on the nature of a network, but still is relevant. And the size of the network that you're showing is quite big, meaning there are many actors involved. And I think that just the simple fact or observation of quantifying the amount of actors, I think it's also a relevant thing to say. And another thing that I've been thinking about my own work, but I think that probably applies to what you have been doing, is you can also compare it to other networks, which you might have quantified or not. But just to give you an example, working on the Yugoslav socialist regime's connections to other parties in the world, I have noticed that many of these connections were often very concentrated around certain people, meaning that there was like one or two socialist intellectuals in Chile who developed a very good relation to the Yugoslavs. So it was very personalized. While now working on Cyprus, for instance, I see that there are much more people involved in the network. So that also shows a different way of doing diplomacy between political parties, between political forces. I mean, just to tell you one of the things that just came to my mind recently when I was looking at my own network, which is in many ways similar to yours, right? And then I had one or two questions. The first one being about a question that I asked myself, which is about the weight you mentioned, right? Because one thing, of course, it's easier and it's almost automatic to measure the weight of the nodes according to how many connections you go. I mean, according to the centrality, the degrees, etc., etc. But I mean, measuring the weights of the connections is extremely difficult, because how would you know that a telephone call is less or more important than a personal visit? How would you know that? It's so difficult to know. And it's so difficult to know also because very often we don't have the same source corresponding to that interaction from the other person. So we don't even know what the impact of that interaction was with someone else. So I'm personally a bit more hesitant about the value of the weight in the connections. I mean, this is something that I've been thinking about for my own work, but it's so hard in the end to quantify. And we often fall prey to the illusion that because we can visualize it, we can measure it. And it can in the end be a little, I mean, I think sometimes giving more detail to your visualization can be misleading, because then it can lead you to think that you are actually showing more while you are maybe basing some of those details in less reliable information. What we just saw was a very reliable network. You showed us true connections that existed. The rest, it will necessarily have more or less subjective factors weighing in. You know what I mean? I'm not. I mean, I want to also hear what you have to say about this, because again, these are questions that I ask myself all the time. But again, and the other thing that I wanted to ask you is also, if I understood correctly, your data extraction was manual, right? It was not automatic. It was not automatic. You did not go through like name entity recognition or any sort of like automatic workflow, right? Was it like going one by one, reading it and filling a database of your own, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. A lot of work. I've been doing the same thing. It's so much work. Okay, so those are more my comments. I really appreciate the presentation, and I'm really happy. I would love it that we keep in touch, because I'm really happy that someone else is doing a similar thing, and with a very different, I mean, in a different context. Still, Puzanov, after leaving North Korea, became ambassador to Yugoslavia. So I think we have one thing in common, at least.
With the time constraints, if there are there any other questions other than Professor Yamamoto? So please, that will reply to Mr. Kosovich.
Oh, can I answer, or should we?
Yeah, you can respond, and we can get back 2 questions.
All right, I see. So first of all, thank you so much for your comments plus questions, Augustine. I felt very happy to see the fellow socialist historian and someone who's doing like similar projects that I have been doing. So thank you so much. All comments and this valuable insights are well received. And answering your question, I'm not interested in quantifying or measuring these small attributes or like any particular attributes in the network. I was mostly interested in showing the like this shape of the human networks. I think you already got me. So maybe later we can work together to create some international this socialist I don't know, the politicians like amazing global network, including your guys, my guys, Buzanov, and Chilean guys. So that would be wonderful. And about the weight, yes, I think it just answered your questions. So once again, thank you so much, and hope to keep in touch. Appreciate it.
Okay, Professor Yamamoto, and then Mr. Vasily.
Hi, thank you very much for a very, very interesting presentation. I'm a historian of Japan, but I did my PhD in a place where a lot of people were doing Cold War history. So the topic sounded very familiar to what I've been hearing. And I'm not a DH person, but from what I understand, the way people use it, how historians use it, and there are, I think, 2 ways that people see value in doing this kind of quantitative analysis of the diplomatic documents. And I'm not sure if you're aware of a historian called Matthew Connelly. He has been working at Columbia for a long time, and he did this book called Declassification Engine. Essentially, I think his motivation was at some point the number of cables, diplomatic cables, increases exponentially, and it becomes impossible for historians to read everything. So by looking at the network and where the communication is happening, where the important communication is happening, I think the argument was you will have a better idea of which ones to read first and which ones to prioritize, and how to I suppose, understand the trend in the overall communication. And second, I think he also uses the approach to essentially critique the state archive system, especially its secrecy and classifying and not really making these communication open, right? So by looking at the metadata and looking at the overall picture of, I suppose, the network and how communication is happening at the macro level, I think these are the two ways to I suppose justify or promote the utility of the approach. And my question, if I may, is actually very simple. Aside from this comment, is how long does it take for someone to learn doing this from scratch? So that's the question. Thank you very much, because I'm interested in doing it myself. So thank you.
Okay, we will go to Mr. Bethlehem, and you can answer the questions.
Thank you. First, thanks for the great presentation. I think my question is, I think related to the two previous one is, have you? I know the documents in the Russian archives are not always that readable, but did you try at all to run some OCR on it to digitize the content? And do you see any potential there for work with NLP? Because as others have mentioned, it's a pretty big corpus. Do you think you could get some insight out of that? And second related question is, do you have any plans? I looked at the website and it looked like you had some plans to share at least some of the metadata that was related to those works. So do you have some long-term project to make those make that data available and maybe also full text searchable with OCR is an option?
Okay, Dr. Oh, you can respond to two questions.
Oh, thank you so much, Professor Yamamoto and Professor Bertlier. I really appreciate your informed comments and very encouraging and I don't know this. I forgot the adjective, like great questions and comments. Thank you so much. So going back to the question raised by Professor Yamamoto, like nowadays, we are amazingly supported by the generative AI chatbot like ChatGPT. So what I did to create this network visualization took not months. It took like a few days. But in order to read and access those Russian materials, it took like many years to equip the linguistic skills. So my current thought is that it might be more better to hire some Russian language speakers to read and transcribe the data from the archival materials into the Word file or electronic files, and then we play with this data. So it really depends on how you approach this matter. So that's my answer for Professor Yamamoto's question. And Professor Bertlier, I know you are one of the pioneering experts in this DH field. So I was very happy to receive your questions and about the application of the OCR. The resolution is very different from one document to another. Like some documents, they are like simply black, so you cannot just read. Even like Russian speakers couldn't read them. And for documents like OCR, I already tried to apply this technology to reading those documents, but it's not always working. So I decided to do all of those jobs manually. At this moment, it's more, I think, correctly representing the information from the documents. And about the metadata and my possible this plan to share, yes, of course. In the future, I am now working on one DH project, and I cannot escape from this project. So while I'm doing this, I hope to use some money assigned to this project to create my own North Korea plus socialist databases for further research and for facilitating collaboration among interested researchers like us gathered here. So that's my answer to your questions. And once again, Professor Yamamoto, Professor Bertlier, thank you so much.
Okay, are there any more questions or comments regarding the presentation? If not, should I just hand it over to Professor Yokoyama to finish the session, please?
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Wu, for sharing your very fascinating research. And thank you, Professor Oh, for facilitating our very enriched conversation. One thing I want to add is that it's really wonderful that Dr. Wu, you share the work in progress, because I can see that in addition to the journal article that you're thinking of, you can also publish how you are preparing the data set, what kind of decisions goes into that in journals like cultural analytics. So I can see a lot of deliverables that would be very useful for historians. And thank you everybody in the room for participating in this session and making our conversations richer. Our next session is going to be on January 26th, 2 p.m. Singapore time, featuring speakers from National University of Singapore. So I'd love to see you all again, and wishing you a happy winter break and restful breaks in between. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. See you again.
Thanks, Tetsuko.
Thank you, Nian.